That breaks my heart.
Which is another reason why people are upset about AO while we're talking about...
And we have to talk about Micah's reaction.
Oh, what he said on Bleacher Report?
No, his reaction.
Oh, his reaction afterwards? Okay, let me make this one point, and then we can talk about Micah. So it's not like the Cowboys were going to the Super Bowl, and honestly, the odds were still low that they would even make the playoffs. But the odds were increasing.
Yeah.
Every year, Coach Mike McCarthy, when people start asking him about playoff seeding and whatever, he's like, we're not going to talk about that till we reach 10 wins. Mm-hmm. There was a possibility for this team to reach 10 wins, and now there's literally no more possibility. So for the people who were excited about watching this momentum to the end of the season and were like, oh, what could happen? Like, this is interesting. We didn't expect this. All that is gone. And it's not gone because the whole team did so poorly. Like, look at how the Bengals have been played. Joe Burrow is arguably one of the best. If you look at his numbers, there is a case to be made that he is the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys defense held them to essentially 20 points. Amazing performance by the defense, who also were not perfect. There were mistakes made, but amazing performance by the defense. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the offense that's just been struggling. All of a sudden, they've got this commitment to the run. They're showing a little bit of creativity with the Wildcat formation with Kevontae Turpin. Like, we're just seeing some interesting things. And so it was just like, at that moment, especially right after the blocked punt, it was like, punts blocked. Yeah. Oh my God. Like,
it's still
we could be right here in Aubrey's field goal range. And then seconds afterwards, it's like, nope. So anyway, let's talk about Micah's reaction. Because when I saw Micah's reaction, I felt like Micah was channeling me. Like what he was showing on the screen was how I felt.
Because too many times people have said, oh, the Cowboys players show no emotion or they're not into it. So then when you see,
I feel like people say the opposite about Cowboys players.
That they show a lot of emotion.
All people do is complain about people like Micah and CD showing emotion. Every time they show emotion, it's a problem.
Those two.
When Dak shows emotion, it's a problem.
Do we see Dak show emotion a lot though?
Yes. When he be on the bench looking frustrated.
To me, the most reaction I see from Dak is when there's an interception and he always has that look like
the deer in headlights.
Yes,
I hate that look.
What is that? But it's not extreme like what I saw from Micah.
Well, no, he doesn't show that kind of emotion. But half the narratives this season have been about somebody's body language on the sideline, or something somebody said in there. It
hasn't been extreme to the point of what we saw, like from Micah.
I don't think what Micah did was extreme. I think what he did was appropriate for the situation.
Before the Cowboys, we don't see that a lot. I feel like with other teams, I'll see it, but you don't see that a lot with the Cowboys, like that much emotion. You may see it in their face a little bit or their body language, but I feel like that's why it was kind of blowing up. Like, oh, look at Mike. And people complain, but I don't think that was a terrible reaction to me. That's somebody that cares about the game.
Who are you listening to? Reaction. Who is out here complaining about Micah's reaction?
You haven't seen it? They're calling him a crybaby.
See, this is why I got off Twitter. That is fucking ridiculous.
Have y'all not seen people complaining about
I have not been
Parsons?
On Twitter, so no, I have not seen this bullshit.
And I also
calling Micah Parsons.
Think it's because of his podcast. People already feel a way about him speaking out on his podcast. So then when you see him on the sidelines reacting like that,
you need to get off Twitter, girl. These people sound crazy.
I'm not agreeing.
I know you're not agreeing, but I just need you to listen to somebody else. Just like even
I'm not listening, but I see it and I'm like, why
all I'm saying is those conversations are not happening on Blue Sky.
Oh gosh, I'm not getting into that.
It's true because people on Blue Sky are being rational.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me respond to that since this was your topic that you brought up.
I just think Michael was channeling the majority of Cowboys Nation. Absolutely.
Thank you, William. So let me respond to this idea. Like, actually, let me rewind to the... I want to choke somebody right now. I'm trying to figure out how to organize my thoughts and not let my frustration with these comments take over and just completely derail me. Do you... Hold on, no, let me get to it later. Okay, so regarding the podcast, first of all, Cowboys fans, Cowboys haters, whoever the fuck, members of the media, Micah Parsons has a podcast. He has for a while, is not going anywhere. He has a position with Bleacher Report, not just as a podcast host. He actually makes decisions when it comes to what Bleacher Report does in terms of entertainment and podcasting and programming and things of that nature. He is, to my knowledge, he's the only active athlete to be in that position. Also, we see every day how players' careers are derailed. Things happen unplanned, or players end up leaving the league.
Make that point.
Players end up leaving the league with no plan, nothing to sustain them, no career to continue their purpose after that. Micah Parsons has found a purpose. He's found a calling. Get the fuck over it. I promise you, whatever is going into him doing this podcast is, first of all, he's one of the best players on defense. Like, if you look at stats, you could argue that he is the best player on defense because in a lot of ways he's outperforming everybody. So if that's what having a podcast causes to happen, everybody needs to have a goddamn podcast. Secondly, whatever you think is going on with the team is not because of Micah Parsons' podcast. No. Because he has people to do things. Like, we had to take a lot of time to set up today, right? He has people to do that shit for him, okay? There's a lot of things that he does not have to worry about. Also, every single player, not only on the Dallas Cowboys, but also in the entire NFL, everybody does something besides watch film and work out.
Yeah.
Everybody does. For some players, it's a podcast. For some players, it's a different side business. There are players in the Cowboys locker room who are selling clothes, who are selling hair products, who have nonprofits that they're helping run, who have artists that they're managing, all kinds of shit. Everybody has something that they do. I don't know why people are so obsessed with Micah's podcast, but damn it, get over it.
It's
been multiple seasons now.
Players need to be quiet and just play ball. And I absolutely hate that. Like you said, they have lives after this. And with football, there's no they don't take care of these players after they have retired or after they're off of a team. So I feel like he's absolutely setting up a future for himself in media if he wants that. And I don't see anything.
It seems like he does want that.
It's not affecting his play.
And also the idea of players need to shut up and do da-da-da. It's, huh? Oh no, that one is. This one's fine.
Oh, sorry.
They can hear us. That has never been the case. It's never been the case. I was talking to somebody about the fact that Deion Sanders put out a whole ass single and a music video.
His son has a podcast right now.
I know Travis Hunter does. Does Shador also does?
Yeah.
I'm only laughing because neither one of them are great speakers. Yeah. But that's what your personality can do for you.
Shador just put out a song too.
Oh, I know. But it's like, the funny thing is, it's like people make fun of Shador for putting out a song. His daddy did it. He's literally following in his father's footsteps. And Deion Sanders did this at a time where, so now, if you and I wanted to, we could go on this laptop, make a single, make a video right here and put it out, right? Deion Sanders did that at a time where he had to go to a recording studio. He had to hire a producer and musicians and an engineer and vocalist. He set up a video shoot. Yeah. That there had to be a budget created for, that there were cameras on site for, that they had to hire models and dancers for. So when we're talking about distractions, Deion Sanders was on Saturday Night Live. There were Cowboys players who had radio shows, who were on the radio all the time. This is not new.
No.
People like to romanticize the past and act like, oh, players back in my day, they wouldn't have done it, but they would have. And they did. And they did. And like I said before, anybody remember the stories about the White House? What we haven't heard about this current rendition of the Cowboys is any stories about them renting out a house and having coked out orgies. Oh, wow. But y'all want to be mad about a damn podcast. Okay.
I think people just need to find an excuse. They want to find some drama, something to be upset about, and control over the players. I feel like some people absolutely feel like, oh, these players just need to play ball. And that's not the case. We're in the space and an age and era now where these athletes are absolutely free, and there's more opportunities to explore other avenues while they're still playing. And I honestly think that's the best time for them to be able to do that, because after they're done playing ball, sometimes they're forgotten about or people don't care. This is the time to strike the iron while it's hot.
People dehumanize players all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one point on which I will agree with John Fossil, is that these players are human. They will have human reactions. They will make human mistakes. In the case of Micah, the podcast is not an issue. Like, I don't even engage with people who make that argument anymore. Yeah.
And then what is it going to change?
And then as far as him being emotional, I mean, so I was listening to a clip of Micah's podcast today, and I'll pull it up if it's beneficial. But he said something to the effect of, if you don't know what it's like to be a true competitor and to want to be your best at everything that you do, then you won't understand.
Right.
And I felt him on that, because there is a lot of things that I push myself really hard to do or to accomplish. And I'll have people tell me that, like, maybe I should relax or not put so much pressure on myself, whatever. And so I'm not saying that I can relate to Micah 100%, but I do think that that perspective of wanting to be the best at everything that you do is what led to him being so frustrated. Yeah. Because you have to think about the fact that Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense, before they faced the Cowboys, they were out here scoring at a high clip. The Cowboys defense was faced with the challenge of essentially holding Joe Burrow to about 50 to 60%. Not just Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, who are literally, statistically, you can look up the facts. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they are two of the best receivers in the entire league. Joe Burrow, arguably the best quarterback in the entire league. And the Cowboys defense, even with everything that it's gone through, with learning a new scheme, the injuries that it's dealt with, people playing in a scheme they're not used to playing in, that's not even necessarily playing to their strengths, they were tasked with the job of holding that, like, just for very formidable, exceptional Bengals offense to about 50 to 60% of their normal production. And they did that shit. And you're like, okay, that was hard, but we held them. All you got to do is get in the field goal range, score a field goal, and we win. And they walked off the field feeling like their job was done. And all they had to do was let special teams do their thing and offense do their thing, and then special teams do their thing again. And then it just blows up, not because the other team pulled out some trick play that they just didn't have an answer for. No, because of a damn mistake. A preventable mistake, a mistake preventable with things that you would expect to be in place, like coaching, game IQ, understanding, awareness, watching the goddamn film, just knowing your job. That's what cost them that. That's what took all the work that Micah Parsons and the Cowboys defense had done up until that point and balled it up and threw it in the trash can. Yes, he was pissed. Like, and then on top of that, because, like, I don't know what people are calling him a crybaby for, but there's that.
I actually showed him crying.
But there's that, and then there's the situation with Overshown. Of course he's crying.
There's a lot.
Like,
that's a lot to happen in a short span of time. And like you said, people dehumanize athletes and expect them to snap in and out of emotions, and it just does not work.
Expect them to not have emotions.
This game within reach, and then it's taken, and then you have someone that you've seen work so hard to get to the point that he didn't Overshown, and then it'd be snatched away from him like that. Emotions were high.
I have literally had people criticize me, like, to my face, for taking into consideration player emotions when I'm presenting a take or an argument. And what's even more wild about it, and I'm gonna go on this tangent for a little bit, we're gonna get back to ball, but what's even more wild about it to me is the fact that it'll be Black men who tell me this. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do we not have enough issues in society where it feels like Black men in general do not have a space to be human and to express their emotions in a safe way? Because, like, let's be real, Micah Parsons did not do anything violent or dangerous. No. He was frustrated about the loss. He was sad about someone who had become a good friend and one of his best teammates being yanked out of the game and possibly missing not only the rest of this season, but also next season.
Right. And plus, like,
who wouldn't feel for someone in that situation?
If the cameras were in his face and he showed no emotion in the blank face, then that would have been a problem. He doesn't care. He's selfish. They didn't care about their teammate. So which is it?
And to me, it's crazy to live in a world where people will be like, oh, nobody cares about how Black men feel. Black men never have room to express themselves or to be emotional. But then, you know, a Black man does it.
Yeah.
One who is well known, who has star power, and who is also known for being tough. Nobody's going to mistake Micah Parsons for being soft or weak. And he does it. But then you see Black men take part in making fun of him. Yeah. And calling him names and criticizing people who take his emotions into consideration whenever they say things. It's wild to me. But anyway, back to ball.
We get back to ball, but that was a valid point, because then when we don't see those emotions come out, you don't realize those emotions are there. Even though you're not seeing them come out, they're there. And when they're bottled up and they build up, and you see someone snap on the sideline, I'll give a small example way back in the past when Odell had a fit with the field goal. It's like, okay, well then, that's outrageous. That's this. Well, you expect people to bottle these emotions up and just keep them there. At some point, they're going to have an outburst. You rather them come out naturally instead of just feeling like, I have to hold my emotions in. So,
and let's also not forget, these are young men.
Yes.
And I don't know why people forget that aspect of these guys' lives. I don't know if it's, sometimes I see people say things like, well, they're making millions of dollars, so they should, like, no.
Putting a price tag on people.
You can't put a price tag on someone's humanity, first of all. Like, these are young men who not only have a lot of them not had a lot of life experience, because for a lot of us, our life experience has been shaped through interactions with our friends, relationships. There are people talking about these young men who have already had kids. There are people talking about these young men who have kids who are the same age as these young men are. And so not only do they have limited life experience, but the life experience that they do have is very different than what most of us had.
Right.
Like, they might, for some of them, right, they might have gone through trials and tribulations as children, growing up either in poverty or in some tough home situation. But especially these days, by the time they get to college, if they are a star on a college campus, things are very different for them. And I won't necessarily say easy, but it's very different in terms of who will take care of you, who will look out for you, the type of people who will gravitate towards you and call themselves your friend, and how that impacts your life. And so there are a lot of things that they will only learn through the turbulence and the trials and tribulations that they face on the field with their teammates, or through trying to navigate life as an NFL star and trying to win, or trying to balance building their brand with being a football player, or trying to process and understand their own emotions when it comes to suffering a loss or having a teammate go down. Like, once again, not to make it sound like roller derby is the same as football, but in Derby, we have Derby sisters, right? And so my Derby sister and I moved to Texas at the same time. So we were both skating in Nashville. And Nashville was a good team, but it didn't seem like it was on a trajectory to be internationally good. Because like in roller derby at the time, rankings were international. Okay. And so the team that we were playing for around the world, it was, I think, about 45th, which, looking back on it now, we probably should have appreciated that more, but we didn't. So we were on a team that was ranked 45th in the world. The Texas Roller Girls, based out of Austin, were ranked 7th. And so we were both like, well, let's move. I was trying to get out of a relationship that was, don't get me started on that. And her wife were moving. She was like, you should just move with us, get away from this dude, come to Texas with us. And I was like, all right. And so we moved to Austin. We auditioned for Texas Roller Girls. We try out for Texas Roller Girls. We both make it. So you make the league, but then you have to also try out again in order to make the team that actually competes on an international level, right? And so we're at one of the tryouts, and the whistle blows to start the jam. She falls. Someone falls on her, and she basically ends up with a tib fib injury. that fucking hurt my soul. And I had seen some bad injuries before that. Like that same Derby sister, I had seen her break her nose and have like blood all over her face. But it was something about knowing that she wasn't going to be able to skate for that upcoming season, and that she wasn't going to be able to be a part of the team competing for the world championships. That just hurt me.
Right.
And it took me a while to process that and understand why something that didn't happen to me affected me. Now, imagine you're a 20-something-year-old man and something similar happens to you. You have a friend who they suffer a freak injury that you don't know if they'll come back from, but even if they do come back from it, their season is derailed. All the things that would make them the legend you think they deserve to be in this sport is going to be derailed, if not completely denied. Because now he's probably no longer in talks for Pro Bowl, All-Pro this year. Definitely won't be next year because he won't be playing. So now you're looking at 2026 before this young man is even ready to play again or can make an impact in the league or on the team that you feel like he deserves to make. And then there's just everything that he's going to, if he can come back at full capacity, and then just everything that he has to go through, the pain that he's in now, the pain that he's going to be in after surgery, the long road that he's going to have to go down just to even be able to walk normally again. You're watching a friend go through this. You're watching someone you call a brother go through this. Like, how could you not be?
These guys spend more time with each other than they do with their families.
In a lot of cases, that is true.
Like practice, preseason, training camp, and their off season is very short. So they're spending, this is not like you go to your 9 to 5 and you go home and that's it. They see each other all the time. And that's not, I'm sure they hang out outside of like work for them, but they have built these bonds. So you can't just expect them to show up, not have emotions or care about one another. That's just not going to be the case.
Exactly. So on that note, I do want to talk about DeMarvion Overshown's injury.